Hi everyone, and welcome back to Abundantly Minimal. My name is Sarah, and today we have a fun mid-year check-in video. I know that for me, I love New Year's and I love the anticipation and excitement when it comes to setting goals in January, but we're coming up at that halfway point of 2022, and I think we can bring a lot of that excitement and the opportunity to set new goals from January and move it here to the middle of the year as a great chance to, give ourselves a fresh start, kind of evaluate how the year has gone so far, what progress we have or have not made yet on different goals that we set, and maybe use it as a new opportunity for ourselves to change the trajectory of the second half of the year. I think that's what makes this half year sort of reset or check-in kind of special. And I personally find about 5 different tips and basically an order of 5 different steps very helpful when doing this. And as they kind of walk through different goals here, I'm hopeful that you can find some of these helpful for yourself. As you watch, feel free to pause the video and keep track of some of your own thoughts, ideas, goals in a notebook or on a digital doc, whatever you prefer. And with this, I'll just be kind of talking through some of my thoughts for my own life, but of course, it's all about how you can apply some of these strategies to your own life if you find that valuable. So the first step that's very important for us when we're thinking about a reset for ourselves, a mid-year check-in, is to schedule our priorities. Now, in life, when we're trying to decide what we're going to do and what we're going to give our attention to, it's very easy for things that are not our priorities to take a bigger role than they deserve in our schedule, in our energy. And sometimes if we don't schedule what matters most to us, it's not going to happen, or we're not going to have enough left to give after. For a great analogy to help us think about this, imagine that everything in your life is like a rock. Each rock is a different size based upon how important it is to you. So whatever your core values are, or what's most important, it would be a larger rock, and then all the other little stuff is smaller rocks. So for instance, maybe you prioritize family time as a big rock, and checking your email is a small rock. With that in mind, your day, let's say, is a jar of some sort, and you have to place the rocks into the jar. If you place the bigger rocks first, they will definitely fit within the jar, and you'll also probably have room to fit smaller rocks around them. But if you put all the small rocks in first, such as checking email and all of those different little tasks like that don't actually align with our priorities, still important, but you know what I'm saying, then there might not be room for the big rocks anymore with those bigger priority items. So I encourage you, reflect first about what those big priorities are and schedule them in first. Look at your calendar, for the next 6 months or whatever time period works for you. And if there is something that you're wanting to do, schedule it. And that can also look different for different people. Some people might put it on the calendar. Maybe others want to set a timer on their phone if it's something you want to prioritize in your day, let's say. Maybe a skill that you're trying to work on, or something that makes you feel good or healthy, or whatever the case is. Scheduling that first before all the other stuff comes in is so important. So I encourage you to start with that. Figure out those building blocks. After we've prioritized and scheduled in these different things, then we can think about what your goals are going to be. When we're thinking about goals, there's a couple different directions we can take. You can consider what goals that you set, or thought about at least, or intended to set in the new year, like January, and pick up where you might have left off, or, try again. You could set a new goal for yourself, or you could set different multifaceted goals. So when we're thinking about multifaceted goals, it's not necessarily one giant all-encompassing goal for yourself, but it's more so progress in different areas. So when we're thinking about multifaceted goals, that could include a house goal, something you want to do in your place where you live. So maybe it's a decluttering project, or, some sort of update or unfinished project you want to actually complete. Maybe it's a health goal that you want to build a new habit for, or you want to ditch something and try something else. Maybe it has to do with a financial goal. You're trying to save up for a certain thing, or allocate more money towards retirement, or try investing, any of that kind of stuff. Maybe it has to do with a hobby that you've maybe neglected or that you have always wanted to get into and you just never have. Maybe it's social goals. Maybe you feel like you're not spending as much time with friends and family as you'd like, or a partner, that kind of thing. Maybe it's activism goals or focusing on impact. Maybe you want to get into volunteering or donating, or some sort of way to give your time to different causes that you care about and you haven't prioritized that. There's really an endless amount of different goals, and I do enjoy the multifaceted approach because it allows you to make progress in lots of different areas. But again, you just have to choose what is the right goal or goals for yourself. And we want to, especially in this mid-year check-in, be very reasonable with our goals. We're not going to, try to run a marathon if we've never run before, or do any major, super dramatic transitions. We want reasonable action. There's always time in the future to build on some of these goals. After you've set your goal or multifaceted goals for the upcoming 6 months, then it's time to break down action steps. Because a goal is kind of a destination, we have to think about what's the journey? How do I get myself to whatever that particular goal is? To use the very cliche and not actually relevant to me at all example of running the marathon, like I just mentioned, if you wish to get into running, you're not going to start out, running a lot all at once. You're going to build up to it and break it down into small individual workouts and gradually increase the duration that you're running, etc. So we want to think, what is this goal? How do we break it down? To give one example of a goal that my husband and I are working towards, we paid off our house in December, and we just came back from a really nice business trip in Europe. We were gone for about 6 weeks. And so at this point, we were putting a lot of our extra funds towards the house, and then we were putting some extra funds towards the trip. And so now that we're back home, we are intending to start increasing our savings for a future house down payment. We live in a condo. A couple years from now, we'll be moving hopefully into a house of ours, and we want to start building up to that slowly but gradually. And so for that goal of starting to build up our savings, we would want to think, okay, what is the total amount of money we'd like to have in that account by the end of 2022? Once you have that amount, you can divide that up if you'd like, or based upon what other costs and earnings come in if they fluctuate throughout the year, which for us they very much do. That is then a way to help you schedule out, okay, this month will contribute this amount of money, this month will contribute this amount of money, and you can even auto set up some of these transactions with different savings accounts. So that's just one example of a financial goal that you can break up and make sure you're on a good pace. And I love it when we're able to set things up to be automatic as well, so you don't have to do as much effort each time you want to make progress on something. So just to recap, we scheduled our priorities, we figured out what our goals are going to be, and the action steps required to reach them. Now, we're going to go back to our scheduling and think about how we're going to schedule in these action steps. What is the pace we want to use? What are we going to focus on at what time? I know I talked a little bit about the multifaceted goal approach. It'd be very difficult to focus on all of those at once. So if, let's say, you decided you wanted to do something in the house and something with these other areas, it might be helpful to view them in 1 month blocks. So maybe the next month in July, you choose to focus on one of these goals and prioritize that project. And then in August, maybe you prioritize a different project. So you can always jump around and give each month a sort of monthly challenge. I find that to be a very helpful process because it breaks down the time frame a little smaller. Or like the example I gave earlier about setting a financial goal, maybe some of those things you schedule in, automatically or ahead of time that are broken down throughout the extended process. It's really up to you, but this can be a wonderful chance for us to be strategic about what we want to achieve and how we're going to get there. Our last step here, which is very, very important when we're trying to have a more intentional use of our time and energy, and that is cutting out what doesn't matter or what's not adding value. Now, this is certainly something easier said than done, and there's a lot of types of things that we can cut out. How do you determine what you cut from a schedule? Well, I think a little honest reflection with yourself is important first. Your true thoughts about certain interactions and the ways you're spending your time. We might have gut reactions about how valuable something is or is not, such as certain group events or gatherings that might happen. And if we feel like something's not that valuable, we might, after having that thought, initially think, well, I can't let that go. It's a tradition, or I would feel so guilty if I didn't go to this sort of event or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, our time is our most sacred resource, and we can't get more of it later. So even though it can be tough at first to say no to different things or to remove yourself from, attending as many of these events, it can be so worthwhile in the future, and you can avoid the dread or irritation that comes from maybe going to one of these different events or gatherings. And being honest with yourself means that you're saying yes to the things that matter more to you. Likewise, we can say no and try to cut out some of our bad habits by reflecting more about them. So, for instance, if you feel like you're spending too much time, let's say, checking your email or on social media. I know those are easy things people often target, and here I am in the video as well. But we can reflect about what is the time I'm spending on these different things and what is the value. Even just having accounts that you feel like you have to check can be kind of an irritation, at least it is for me. That's why I really haven't been doing anything with social media for a long time, just because it just feels easier not to check out, and feel like you have to keep up with things. So from that perspective, if something is not adding value, it's creating work, if it's creating stress, maybe we can limit it, reduce the time, reduce the number of days you're checking it each week, or the number of times you're checking something per day. Or maybe even we test out cutting certain things out entirely, or at least a test period of doing so. I gave a couple examples here, but of course this is totally going to vary on the person based upon their lifestyle, interests, their job, anything like that. So those are just some starting points here for you for thinking about a mid-year check-in. I think that this can be a really great opportunity and maybe a new tradition to start doing some of this extra reflecting at the halfway point and helping you have very intentional second halves of the year and not have to think, I'll wait till January or I'll wait till the new year. Feel free to share any of your goals or thought processes from this video that came to mind in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.